I never thought I'd be sitting in my lawyer's office at 73 years old, revising my will while my 3 children fought over who would get what when I died. But that's exactly where life took me last Tuesday afternoon. And honestly, it was one of the most liberating moments of my entire life. My name is Helen Carter, and for the past 50 years, I've been what everyone calls the reliable one. The rock. The safety net. The person everyone comes to when they need money, when they need help, when they need someone to bail them out of their latest crisis. And I wore that badge with pride for decades. I thought that's what mothers were supposed to do. Sacrifice everything, give until there's nothing left, and somehow feel fulfilled watching your children take and take without ever looking back to say thank you. But 3 weeks ago, something inside me snapped. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a single moment. It was more like the final grain of sand that causes the entire dune to collapse. My son Marcus called me at 11 o'clock at night, drunk and belligerent, demanding $15,000 to cover gambling debts he'd racked up at some casino downtown. When I told him I didn't have it because I genuinely didn't, he laughed. Actually laughed. Then he said something I'll never forget. "What good are you if you can't even help your own son? You're useless, Mom. Absolutely useless." I stood there in my kitchen, phone pressed against my ear, tears streaming down my face, and for the first time in my life, I wondered what the hell I'd been doing all these years. What had all my sacrifice gotten me? Contempt. Disrespect. 3 adult children who saw me as nothing more than an ATM machine that occasionally ran out of cash. That night changed everything. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and tell you how I got here, because this story doesn't start with that phone call. It starts 51 years ago when I was a young mother with my first baby in my arms, filled with all the hope and love and naive dreams that every new parent has. I was 22 when I had my first child, Rebecca. Her father, my husband Tom, was a good man, hardworking, devoted, the kind of father who coached Little League and never missed a school play. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Tom worked as a mechanic, and I worked part-time as a secretary at a dental office. We had a small house in a decent neighborhood, and we were building something real, something solid. 2 years later, Marcus came along. He was my wild child from the start, always pushing boundaries, always testing limits. Where Rebecca was cautious and thoughtful, Marcus was impulsive and reckless. But I loved him fiercely, the way you love all your children, even or maybe especially the difficult ones. Then came Jennifer, my baby, born when I was 28. She was the surprise, the one we hadn't planned but welcomed with open arms. Sweet Jennifer, who seemed so gentle and kind as a child, who drew me pictures and told me I was the best mommy in the world. Life was good. Chaotic, exhausting, expensive, but good. We struggled sometimes, the way all young families do. There were months when we had to choose between fixing the car and buying new shoes for the kids. There were times when I went without so they could have more. But that felt right to me. That felt like what love looked like. Everything changed when Tom died. He was 46 years old. A heart attack at work, sudden and devastating. One minute he was alive, laughing, planning our anniversary dinner. The next he was gone. I was 44 years old with 3 teenagers, a mortgage, and suddenly only one income. Rebecca was 22 and had just graduated from college. Marcus was 20 and floundering, having dropped out of community college after 1 semester. Jennifer was 16 and still in high school. That's when the pattern really started, though I didn't see it at the time. I thought I was just doing what any good mother would do. Stepping up, taking care of my family, making sure they didn't suffer because of this tragedy. Rebecca needed help with her first apartment. Of course I helped. It was only $3,000 for the security deposit and first month's rent. She just started her first real job, and she couldn't come up with the money on her own. What was I supposed to do? Let her be homeless? Marcus needed a car because he was supposedly going to use it to drive to a new job. I used some of Tom's life insurance money to buy him a used Honda Civic. $1,500. He totaled it 3 months later driving drunk, and miraculously no one was hurt. He never mentioned paying me back. I never asked. Jennifer needed money for college. That made sense, right? Education is important. I'd saved some money over the years, and combined with Tom's life insurance, I had about $60,000 set aside. I told Jennifer I'd help with her tuition. Over the next 4 years, I gave her almost $40,000. She went to an expensive private school because she said the state school wasn't good enough for her aspirations. She wanted to study art history. I supported her dreams. I went back to work full-time. I was exhausted, grieving, drowning in bills, but I kept going. Because that's what mothers do. The years rolled by. My children graduated, got jobs, started their adult lives. And the requests kept coming. They never stopped. Rebecca met a man named David. He seemed nice enough at first, but within 6 months of them dating, I started to notice things. He never paid for dinner when we went out. He was always between jobs. Rebecca started asking me for money more frequently. First it was a few hundred here and there for rent when David's job fell through. Then it was $1,000 to help them avoid eviction. Then $2,000 for a security deposit on a better apartment. Then $5,000 when David's car got repossessed and they needed something reliable. I said yes every time. Because she was my daughter and she needed help, and what else was I going to do? Marcus was in and out of jobs, in and out of relationships, in and out of trouble. He called me from jail once needing bail money. $1,500. I paid it. He promised he'd learned his lesson. 2 years later, he called me from a different jail, needing bail money again. $3,000 this time. I paid it. He swore this was the last time. I believed him because I needed to believe him. Jennifer graduated with her art history degree and couldn't find work. She moved back home with me. I told her she could stay as long as she needed while she figured things out. She stayed for 3 years. She paid no rent. She contributed nothing to groceries or utilities. She slept until noon and spent her evenings out with friends, always needing $20 here, $50 there, $100 for this special event, $200 for that emergency. When she finally moved out, it was because she met a man named Gregory who made good money in finance. She called me 2 weeks before the wedding needing help with costs because Gregory's family expected a big fancy affair. I contributed $12,000 I didn't have, putting much of it on credit cards. She promised she'd pay me back someday. I never saw a penny. But here's the thing, I didn't mind. Not really. I told myself this was what family meant. You help each other. You sacrifice. You give without expecting anything in return because that's what love is, right? I was so wrong. About 5 years ago, I started having health problems. Nothing catastrophic, but the kind of issues that come with age, high blood pressure, arthritis, some heart concerns. My doctor put me on several medications that weren't fully covered by my insurance. My expenses went up. My ability to work went down. I had to cut back my hours at the dental office because standing all day became too painful. My income dropped. My savings, already depleted from years of helping my children, dwindled further. I didn't tell my children at first. I didn't want them to worry. I also didn't want them to feel obligated to help me when they all had their own lives, their own problems. But word got out somehow. Rebecca found a bottle of my heart medication when she came to visit and saw the price on the label. She was shocked. "Mom, this is $300 a month. How are you affording this?" I shrugged it off. "I manage. Don't worry about me." She nodded and changed the subject. She didn't offer to help. Not that I expected her to, I told myself. Though somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered. Would it kill her to offer? The dynamic started shifting around then. The requests for money didn't stop, but they became more entitled. Less apologetic. More demanding. Marcus called needing $3,000 for a business investment that was definitely going to make him rich. When I told him I didn't have it, he got angry. What do you mean you don't have it? You always have it. Marcus, I'm on a fixed income now. I'm living on Social Security and a small pension. I can't just... Whatever, Mom. I thought you cared about me succeeding. He hung up. He didn't call me for 3 months. Jennifer needed money to redo her kitchen. $8,000. It wasn't an emergency, she explained. But Gregory wanted it done, and they didn't want to wait to save up. Can't you just take out a small loan against your house, Mom? You have all that equity just sitting there. I was stunned. Jennifer, this is my home. I can't risk losing it for a kitchen renovation. She got quiet. Then she said in a voice colder than I'd ever heard from her. You've really changed, Mom. You used to be so generous. That one hurt. A lot. Rebecca was the worst, though. She'd married David 5 years earlier in a courthouse ceremony after I'd already contributed thousands to an engagement that fell apart. They had a daughter, my granddaughter Lily, who was 3 years old. I loved Lily desperately. She was pure joy, pure light. Rebecca knew this, and she used it. Mom, Lily needs new clothes for the season. Can you help out? Maybe $500. Mom, Lily's preschool is really expensive, but it's the best in the area. Can you contribute? Maybe $1,000 a month. Mom, we want to take Lily to Disney, but we're short on funds. Can you chip in? Maybe $3,000. I said yes so many times because I couldn't bear the thought of my granddaughter suffering or missing out. But eventually I had to start saying no. The money just wasn't there. That's when Rebecca started limiting my access to Lily. It was subtle at first. Plans would get canceled at the last minute. Oh, sorry, Mom, Lily's not feeling well. Or we had something come up. Or David's parents are in town, so we're busy. Then it became more obvious. I'd call to ask if I could take Lily to the park, and Rebecca would say, "We're trying to limit her activities right now. Maybe another time." I saw my granddaughter maybe once every 2 months when it used to be once or twice a week. It was killing me. About a year ago, things reached a new low. My refrigerator died. It was old, had been on its last legs for a while, but when it finally gave out, I was in a bind. I needed a new one, but a decent refrigerator costs at least $1,000 and I didn't have it. I'd been helping Jennifer with her student loan payments because she complained they were too high and affecting her credit. I called Rebecca first. "Honey, I hate to ask, but my fridge died and I'm in a tough spot. Is there any way you could help me out? Maybe loan me a few hundred until I can pay you back." There was a long silence. Then she said, "Mom, we're really tight right now. David's been out of work again. I don't think we can help." I understood. Or I tried to. "Okay, sweetheart. I understand. Thanks anyway." I called Marcus next. Same story. "Mom, I'm broke. Can't help." I called Jennifer last. She was my baby. Surely she'd help. "Mom, I really can't. Gregory and I just booked a trip to Europe, and we need all our cash for that. Sorry." I sat on my kitchen floor and cried. Then I figured it out myself. I sold some jewelry Tom had given me years ago, and bought a used refrigerator off Craigslist. Not one of my children asked if I'd figured it out. Not one checked in to see if I was okay. But they all kept asking me for money. 3 months after the refrigerator incident, Marcus called needing $2,000 for car repairs. I told him I didn't have it. He got nasty. "You're so selfish, Mom. Always thinking about yourself." I was so shocked I couldn't even respond. I just hung up. 2 weeks later, Jennifer called needing money for a vacation she wanted to take with friends. "Come on, Mom. It's only $1,500. You can spare that." "Jennifer, I can't. I'm barely making ends meet." "God, when did you become so cheap?" "Cheap." She called me cheap after I'd given her almost $50,000 over the years, not counting everything I'd spent raising her. Rebecca's requests became demands. "Mom, we need you to contribute $500 a month for Lily's activities. She's in dance now, and it's expensive." "Rebecca, I can't afford that." "Fine. Then don't complain when you don't see her. We're just too busy to coordinate visits with someone who won't help support her." My heart shattered. She was openly holding my granddaughter hostage for money. I started keeping track. I know that sounds petty, but I needed to know. I needed to see it in black and white because I was starting to feel crazy, like maybe I was the problem, maybe I was being unreasonable. I went through old bank statements, credit card bills, checks I'd written. I added it all up. Over the course of 30 years, I had given my 3 children combined over $250,000. $250,000. Money for rent, cars, bail, weddings, education, emergencies that weren't emergencies, once disguised as needs. I had $42,000 left to my name. That included everything: my small savings account, my checking account, and the equity in my house if I sold it. I was 73 years old with maybe 20 good years left if I was lucky, and I had $42,000. My children combined had spent more than my retirement fund, and not one of them had ever paid me back. Not one of them had ever said thank you and meant it. Not one of them had ever offered to help me when I needed it. And still they kept asking. Still they expected. Still they demanded. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago with that phone call from Marcus. The one where he called me useless. I hung up the phone and sat in the dark of my kitchen for hours. I thought about my life, about Tom, about all the years I'd spent trying to be a good mother. I thought about the sacrifices I'd made, the things I'd gone without, the dreams I'd deferred. And I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. My children didn't respect me. They didn't value me. They didn't see me as a person with my own needs and limitations. They saw me as a resource to be exploited. And when that resource ran dry, I became worthless to them. That's not love. That's not family. That's abuse. I made a decision that night. I was done. I was done sacrificing. I was done giving. I was done lighting myself on fire to keep them warm while they complained I wasn't burning bright enough. The next morning I called my lawyer, Richard Chan. He'd handled Tom's estate years ago, and I'd kept in touch with him sporadically over the years. He was semi-retired now but still took on select clients. "Richard, I need to revise my will. Can you fit me in this week?" "Of course, Helen. Is everything all right?" "Everything's about to be," I said. I met with him 2 days later. I brought my notebooks, the ones where I'd tracked every penny I'd given my children over the years. I showed him the spreadsheets, the bank statements, the evidence of 30 years of one-sided generosity. He looked at the numbers, then at me. "Helen, what do you want to do?" "I want to protect myself. And I want them to understand they can't treat me this way anymore." We spent 3 hours going over my options. Richard was thorough, asking questions, making suggestions, helping me think through consequences. He wasn't just a lawyer. He was a kind man who genuinely seemed to care about my well-being. By the end of that meeting, I had a plan. First, we revised my will. My previous will had split everything equally among my 3 children. Standard, simple, what most parents do. My new will was different. I left Rebecca $1. Literally, $1. With a note explaining that this was more than she'd ever given me when I needed help, so it seemed appropriate. I left Marcus $1. With a note explaining that this was what I could spare after he'd called me useless for not having money to give him. I left Jennifer $1. With a note explaining that she'd called me cheap, so I was fulfilling her expectations. The rest of my estate, my house, my savings, everything, I left to 3 charities. One that helped elderly people in financial distress. One that provided scholarships to first-generation college students who actually needed help, not spoiled art history majors who wanted to go to fancy schools. And one that supported victims of financial abuse by family members. That last one felt particularly appropriate. But I didn't stop there. Richard had another suggestion. "Helen, have you considered setting up a trust for yourself? Something that would protect your assets while you're still alive. Make it harder for anyone to pressure you into giving away money you need." I hadn't considered it, but it made perfect sense. We set up a trust with Richard as the trustee. My house went into the trust. My savings went into the trust. I would receive a monthly distribution for my living expenses, but I could no longer be pressured into giving away large sums because I literally wouldn't have access to them without going through Richard. It was perfect. The new will was finalized a week later. I signed it in Richard's office with 2 witnesses present, making it completely legal and ironclad. Then came the hard part. I had to tell my children. I didn't do it right away. I needed time to prepare myself, to build up the courage. But I also knew I couldn't wait too long. If something happened to me and they found out through the will after I died, they'd contest it, claim I was coerced or mentally incompetent. I needed them to know now, while I was very much alive and of sound mind. I decided to tell them all at once. I invited them to dinner at my house. A rare occurrence these days since they only came around when they needed something. Rebecca almost didn't come. "Mom, Sundays are really busy for us. Can't this wait?" "No, it can't. It's important. I need all 3 of you here." Something in my tone must have convinced her because she agreed. Marcus showed up 20 minutes late, which was typical. Jennifer arrived with Gregory, even though I'd specified just my children. But I didn't have the energy to argue about it. We sat in my living room, the same living room where they'd grown up, where we'd had Christmas mornings and birthday parties and family game nights. Where Tom had proposed to me 48 years ago. The room was full of ghosts. "Thanks for coming," I started. My hands were shaking but my voice was steady. "I know you're all busy, so I'll get to the point. I wanted to tell you that I've revised my will. Rebecca looked confused. Okay. Why are you telling us this? Because I want you to understand some things while I'm still alive to explain them. Marcus laughed, that same dismissive laugh from the phone call. Let me guess. You're leaving everything to charity or something dramatic like that? I looked him right in the eyes. Actually, yes. That's exactly what I'm doing. The room went silent. Jennifer recovered first. You're joking. I'm not joking. I've left each of you $1. The rest of my estate is going to charity. You can't do that. Marcus was on his feet now, his face red. We're your children. Yes, you are. And for 30 years I've proven that over and over by giving you everything I had. Over $250,000 combined. Money for college, cars, bail, rent, weddings, business ventures, vacations. I gave and gave and gave. And what did I get in return? We're your kids. You're supposed to help us. Rebecca's voice was shrill. Help you? Is that what you think that was? Let me tell you what I got in return for my help. When my refrigerator died, not one of you could spare even $100. When I asked for a small loan, you all said no. But Marcus, you had no problem demanding $3,000 for a business investment 2 weeks later. Jennifer, you couldn't help with my refrigerator, but you could book a trip to Europe. Rebecca, you've been holding my granddaughter hostage because I can't afford to subsidize her activities. That's not fair. Rebecca was crying now. You don't understand how hard it is. No, you don't understand how hard it is. I cut her off. I'm 73 years old. I live on Social Security and a small pension. I have health problems that require expensive medication. I should be comfortable in my retirement after working my whole life. But I'm not, because I gave everything to you. And instead of gratitude, instead of respect, what do I get? Marcus calls me useless. Jennifer calls me cheap. Rebecca threatens to keep my granddaughter away from me. Tell me, how is any of that fair? Mom, we didn't mean, Jennifer started. Yes, you did. You absolutely meant it. And I'm done. I'm done being your ATM. I'm done being treated like I'm worthless when I can't give you money. I'm done sacrificing my well-being for children who wouldn't sacrifice anything for me. This is insane. Marcus was pacing now. You're being manipulated by someone. That lawyer probably. He's taking advantage of you. Richard Chun is protecting me. From you. All of you. We could contest this. Gregory spoke up for the first time. If you're not of sound mind, I am completely of sound mind, which is why I'm telling you now, with witnesses present earlier at the signing. You can contest all you want. You'll lose. Richard made sure of that. Rebecca was full on sobbing. How can you do this to us? To Lily? Don't you care about your granddaughter's future? That one almost broke me. Almost. But then I remembered all the time she'd dangled Lily like a carrot, all the time she'd used my love for my granddaughter to extort money from me. I care about Lily very much. Which is why I hope she grows up to be nothing like her mother. I hope she learns to value people for more than what they can give her. I hope she treats the people who love her with respect and gratitude. You're a terrible mother, Marcus spat. I stood up. I was done with this conversation. Get out of my house. Gladly. Marcus stormed toward the door. Jennifer followed, Gregory trailing behind her. Rebecca stayed for a moment, her face blotchy with tears. Mom, please. Don't do this. We can talk about this. We can fix things. There's nothing to fix, Rebecca. This is done. You're all adults. You all have jobs, homes, lives. You'll be fine without my money. And I'll be fine without your disrespect. She stared at me for a long moment, then shook her head. You're going to die alone, you know that? Alone and bitter. Maybe. But I'll die knowing I finally stood up for myself. That's worth more than dying surrounded by people who only loved me for my money. She left without another word. I closed the door behind them and leaned against it, my heart pounding. I was shaking. I felt nauseous. But underneath all of that I felt something else. Relief. Incredible, overwhelming relief. And something that might have been pride. The next few days were quiet. None of my children called. No texts. No emails. Nothing. It hurt. I won't lie about that. They were my babies. I'd given birth to them, raised them, loved them their entire lives. The silence was painful. But it was also peaceful. For the first time in decades, my phone wasn't ringing with requests for money. I wasn't anxious every time I saw one of their names pop up on my screen, wondering what they needed now, how much it would cost, how I would make it work. I was just free. A week after the dinner, my neighbor Margaret came over with coffee and cookies. She was 76, a widow like me, and we'd been friends for 15 years. I haven't seen your kids' cars around lately, she said carefully. Everything okay? I told her everything. The whole story, from the first request 30 years ago to the new will to the disastrous dinner. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Good for you, Helen. It's about damn time. You don't think I'm being cruel? Cruel? Honey, you've been nothing but kind to those kids their entire lives. There's a difference between being kind and being a doormat. You finally figured that out. I'm afraid I'll never see Lily again. Maybe not. And that's heartbreaking. But think about it this way, what were you teaching her by letting Rebecca treat you that way? That it's okay to use people? That love is conditional based on money? Is that really what you want her to learn? She was right. I knew she was right. But it still hurt. 2 weeks after the dinner, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Carter? This is Amanda Reeves. I'm a social worker with Elder Services. My heart sank. Yes. I received a call from your son Marcus expressing concern about your mental state. He seems to think you're being taken advantage of by someone. I'm calling to do a wellness check. Would it be all right if I came by to talk to you? So that's how they were going to play it. Try to prove I was incompetent. Of course. When would you like to come? She arrived the next day. Amanda was probably in her 40s, professional but warm. She asked me questions about my daily life, my health, my finances. She asked about my relationship with my children. I was honest about everything. I showed her my notebooks with the financial records. I explained the pattern of giving and taking. I told her about the refrigerator, the phone call, everything. She listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, she closed her notebook. Mrs. Carter, I see absolutely no evidence that you're being taken advantage of or that you're not of sound mind. In fact, it seems to me like you've made a very rational decision to protect yourself from financial abuse. I nearly cried with relief. However, she continued, I do want to give you some resources. Information about support groups for people who've experienced financial abuse from family members. A therapist who specializes in family estrangement. Just in case you want someone to talk to. I took the pamphlets gratefully. Before she left, she said something I'll never forget. You know, I see this more often than you'd think. Adult children who feel entitled to their parents' money, who treat them terribly, then act shocked when there are consequences. You're not alone, Mrs. Carter. And you're not wrong. After she left, I called Richard to let him know what happened. I expected this, he said. Marcus also called me, trying to get information about your will, implying that I'd manipulated you. I shut that down quickly. I've documented everything, Helen. If they try to contest the will, we have mountains of evidence that you were completely competent and made this decision freely. Thank you, Richard. Don't thank me. You're doing the right thing. I just wish more people had the courage to do what you're doing. Another week passed. Still no word from my children. Then one evening my phone rang. Rebecca. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. Hello. Mom. Her voice was different. Quieter. Less certain. Can we talk? We are talking. I mean in person. Can I come over? I hesitated. Every instinct told me this was a trap. Another manipulation. But I was also curious. All right. Tomorrow afternoon. 2 o'clock. She arrived exactly on time, which was unusual for her. She was alone, no David or Lily. She looked tired. We sat in the living room again. I made tea but neither of us drank it. Mom. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I waited. I talked to a friend of mine, Karen. She's a therapist. I told her what happened, expecting her to agree with me that you were being unreasonable. Instead, she asked me some hard questions. She paused, looking down at her hands. She asked me how much money you'd given me over the years. I didn't know exactly, but when I estimated, even I was shocked. Then she asked what I'd done for you. I couldn't think of anything significant. She asked when the last time was that I'd helped you with something, not because you asked but just because I noticed you needed help. I couldn't remember. Tears were sliding down her cheeks now. Then she asked me how I'd react if Lily grew up and treated me the way I've been treating you. And I lost it, Mom. I couldn't stand the thought of it. But that's exactly what I've been doing to you. I felt my own eyes filling with tears, but I blinked them back. I needed to hear all of this. I used Lily against you. I held your granddaughter hostage for money. That's monstrous, Mom. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I became that person. Why did you? I asked quietly. Why did it get to that point? She was quiet for a long time. Honestly? Because it was easy. You always said yes. You always helped. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing it as you being generous and started seeing it as you being obligated. Like it was your job to help me, not a gift you were giving. And David's been a leech. Karen helped me see that too. He's never held down a job for more than a year. He's always got an excuse. And I've been enabling him the same way you enabled me. What are you going to do about it? I told him he has 3 months to find a stable job and keep it, or I'm filing for divorce. I've also started looking for a better job myself. Something that pays more. Because I need to stand on my own feet. I need to stop expecting other people to rescue me. I didn't know what to say. I'm not here to ask you to change your will back, Rebecca continued. I don't have any right to your money. I never did. I'm here to say I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom. For all of it. For taking advantage of you. For disrespecting you. For using Lily against you. You deserved so much better from me. The tears came then for both of us. I reached across and took her hand. Thank you for saying that. Do you think? She hesitated. Do you think we can rebuild our relationship? Not based on money. Just based on actually being mother and daughter. I'd like that. But it's going to take time. And things can't go back to how they were. I understand. I don't want them to go back to how they were. I want them to be better. We talked for 2 more hours. Really talked, maybe for the first time in years. She told me about her struggles with David. How she'd felt trapped but also responsible for him. I told her about the fear and loneliness I'd been feeling. How invisible I'd become to my own children. Before she left, she asked if she could bring Lily by that weekend. Not as a bargaining chip. Just because Lily missed me and asked about me constantly. She draws pictures for you all the time, Rebecca said. I have a whole stack of them at home. She doesn't understand why we haven't been visiting Grandma. I'd love to see her. That weekend, Rebecca brought Lily over. We baked cookies together, read books, played in the yard. It was simple. Perfect. At the end of the afternoon, as they were leaving, Lily hugged me tight. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, sweetheart. After they left, Rebecca called me. Mom, I'm not expecting anything, but I want you to know, I'm going to pay you back. It's going to take years, maybe decades, but I'm going to pay you back every penny you gave me. You need that money for your retirement. I'm going to make this right. I was stunned. Rebecca, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Not because I want your inheritance back. Because it's the right thing to do. I didn't know if she'd follow through. Maybe she would, maybe she wouldn't. But the fact that she said it meant something. Marcus and Jennifer, on the other hand, went in a different direction. 2 months after the dinner, I received legal papers. They were contesting the will, claiming undue influence and mental incompetence. I called Richard immediately. I expected this too, he said calmly. Let them try. We have documentation of everything. The social worker's report. The witnesses at the signing. Your medical records showing you're in good health mentally. The financial records showing the pattern of their behavior. They're not going to win, Helen. He was right. The case was dismissed within 3 months. The judge actually reprimanded Marcus and Jennifer's lawyer, saying it was clear the case had no merit and was a waste of the court's time. They tried one more approach after that. They both showed up at my house unannounced one evening. I almost didn't answer the door. But I did. What do you want? Mom, please. Jennifer had been crying. Please don't do this. We're sorry. We didn't mean those things we said. We were just upset. You were upset that I stopped giving you money. That's not the same as being sorry for how you treated me. We are sorry. Marcus insisted. Come on, Mom. We're family. Family forgives each other. You're right. Family does forgive each other. But family also respects each other. Family doesn't call each other useless or cheap. Family doesn't sue each other for daring to make their own decisions about their own money. That was a mistake, Jennifer said quickly. Our lawyers said we had a case. We were listening to bad advice. No, you were listening to greed. And you still are. You're not here because you miss me or because you value me. You're here because you want to change my mind about the will. I can see it in your eyes. That's not true. Marcus protested. Prove it. Show me over the next year that you can have a relationship with me that isn't about money. Come visit me without asking for anything. Call me just to see how I'm doing. Show me that I matter to you beyond what I can give you. If you can do that, maybe we can rebuild something. But I'm not holding my breath. And the will? Jennifer asked, showing her true colors. The will stays as it is. Even if we rebuild our relationship, the will stays as it is. Because I need to know that you love me for me, not for what you'll get when I die. They left angry. I haven't heard from them since. That was 6 months ago. In that time, Rebecca has visited every week. She brings Lily and we bake or read or just talk. She got a better job with a 20% raise. She told me David did find steady work but that she's still not sure about their marriage. She's in therapy working through her own issues. She hasn't asked me for money once. Last month she handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $200. It's not much, she said. But it's a start. First payment on what I owe you. I tried to give it back. Rebecca, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Please let me do this, Mom. I need to do this. I kept the check. Not because I needed the money, but because I understood what it represented: respect, responsibility, and a daughter finally understanding the value of what she'd been given. I deposited it in a savings account. I'm going to save every payment she makes. Someday when she's really back on her feet, I'll give it all back to her with interest. Not as a gift but as a legacy. Proof that she grew into the person I always hoped she'd become. My life is quieter now. I see Rebecca and Lily regularly. Marcus and Jennifer are gone from my life, and I've made peace with that. Maybe someday they'll come around, genuinely come around, not just when they need something. Or maybe they won't. Either way, I'm okay. I've joined a book club with Margaret and some other neighbors. I volunteer at the library twice a week. I'm taking a watercolor painting class at the community center. I'm doing things I couldn't do before because I was always too stressed about money, too drained from dealing with my children's constant demands. I'm living my life. Finally, my will stays as it is. Richard checks in with me every few months to make sure I'm doing all right. My trust is managed well. I have enough to live comfortably for the rest of my days without fear of running out. Last week was my 74th birthday. Rebecca and Lily came over with a homemade cake. We sang and laughed and ate too much sugar. Rebecca gave me a gift. Not something expensive, just a framed photo of the three of us from when Lily was a baby. I found this going through old pictures, she said. I wanted you to have it. To remember that even though I lost my way for a while, there was always love there. And there still is. I put it on my nightstand. It's the last thing I see before I go to sleep every night. I don't regret my decision. Not for a second. The will stays changed. The boundaries stay firm. The lesson stays taught. Because the most important thing I learned through all of this is that teaching my children to respect me is the greatest gift I could ever give them. Greater than any amount of money. Greater than any inheritance. I spent 50 years being the rock, the safety net, the endless well of support. I gave until I had nothing left, and I was treated with contempt for it. Now I'm teaching them something different. I'm teaching them that people have limits. That generosity needs to be met with gratitude. That love isn't about what you can take, but about what you give. Rebecca learned it. Maybe someday Marcus and Jennifer will too. But even if they don't, I've learned something just as important. I matter. My needs matter. My dignity matters. And I deserve to be treated with respect, especially by the people I gave everything to raise. They laughed when I couldn't bail them out. They mocked me. They called me useless and cheap. Then they saw my new will. And they stopped laughing. I spent my whole life putting my children first. Now, in the final chapter of my life, I'm finally putting myself first. And it feels like freedom. I recently started writing down my story. Not just the financial details, but the emotional journey. My therapist, yes, I have a therapist now, courtesy of those resources Amanda Reeves gave me, suggested it might be healing. She was right. Writing it down has helped me process everything. The years of giving. The slow erosion of boundaries. The moment I finally said enough. The aftermath. I'm thinking about sharing my story with a support group for elderly people who've experienced financial abuse from family. Maybe my experience can help someone else find the courage to set boundaries before they end up in the situation I was in. Because that's the thing, I waited too long. I should have set boundaries decades ago. I should have said no the first time Marcus called me from jail. I should have refused to subsidize Jennifer's expensive private school when state school would have been fine. I should have stopped enabling Rebecca's relationship with a man who clearly wasn't pulling his weight. But I didn't know how. I thought being a good mother meant always saying yes, always helping, always sacrificing. No one teaches you that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. That sometimes helping is actually enabling. That sometimes sacrifice isn't noble. It's just self-destruction. I know that now. And I want other people to know it too before they give away everything and end up at 73 with nothing but resentment and broken relationships. Yesterday, Rebecca called with news. She and David are separating. He finally showed his true colors, getting angry when she refused to ask me for money to cover his gambling debts. She realized he was just a different version of what she'd been to me. A taker who felt entitled to someone else's resources. I'm scared, she admitted. Being a single mom is going to be hard. But I watched you survive after Dad died, raising 3 kids on your own. If you could do that, I can do this. You can, I told her. And this time you'll do it standing on your own feet, not constantly looking for someone else to prop you up. I learned from the best, she said. It just took me 30 years to learn the right lesson instead of the wrong one. We both laughed at that, though it was bittersweet. Life is strange. A year ago, I had 3 children who called regularly, always wanting something, but they called. I had a granddaughter I saw often, even if it was part of an extortion scheme. I had a family dysfunctional as it was. Now I have one daughter who's genuinely trying to rebuild our relationship. A granddaughter I see regularly without strings attached. And 2 children who've cut me out of their lives because I wouldn't let them bleed me dry anymore. Most people would say I've lost more than I've gained. But those people would be wrong. I've gained something I hadn't had in decades. Peace. Self-respect. The ability to sleep at night without anxiety about the next financial demand. The freedom to spend my limited resources on myself without guilt. I've gained a relationship with my daughter that's real, based on actual love and respect instead of financial transactions. I've gained the knowledge that I was strong enough to finally stand up for myself, even when it meant facing my worst fear, losing my children. And most importantly, I've gained the final years of my life back. However many I have left, they're mine. To live as I choose. To spend my money as I see fit. To set boundaries without guilt. They laughed when I couldn't bail them out. They mocked me when I said I didn't have money to give. They sneered when I finally stood up for myself. Then they saw my new will, and realized the consequences of treating someone like an ATM instead of a mother. The inheritance they assumed was theirs is going to help people who actually need it. Elderly people who are being taken advantage of. Students who are working hard and need a hand up, not a handout. Victims of financial abuse who need resources to escape. My money will do good in this world. Real good. Not just enabling dysfunction and entitlement. And that feels right. That feels like the legacy I want to leave. Not as the woman who gave everything until there was nothing left, but as the woman who finally learned her own worth, set boundaries, and refused to be diminished any longer. As the woman who taught her children, even if only one of them was willing to learn, that respect is earned, not demanded. As the woman who proved that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, even if it means standing alone. I'm 74 years old. I don't know how many years I have left. But I know this. The years I have will be lived on my terms. And that's worth more than any inheritance I could have left behind. The story of my life won't end with, she gave everything to her children. It will end with she finally chose herself and she found peace. That's the legacy I want. That's the lesson I'm leaving. Not in money but in courage. Not in inheritance but in integrity. Not in what I gave away but in what I finally kept: my dignity, my self-respect, and my freedom. They laughed when I couldn't bail them out. But I'm laughing now. Because I won. Not against them but for myself. And that's the best ending I could have ever asked for.